Thank you, Frank. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our special board meeting tonight. The time is 5:02 p.m. We are calling this meeting to order. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
I'm present. Trustee Dooley,
Present.
President Hannah,
Present.
Trustee Miller,
Present.
and Treasurer Terry.
Present.
We have a form, 5-0.
Thank you. If we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Your teacher.
Can I get a motion to amend the agenda? I want to add under open floor board discussion regarding board members attending negotiation.
So move.
Support.
It's been moved by Trustee Dooley, supported by Secretary Davis Smith, to amend the agenda to add under open floor board discussion regarding board members attending negotiation. Any questions? Roll call.
I'm voting yes. Trustee Dooley,
Yes.
President Hannah,
Yes.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Treasurer Terry.
Yes.
That passes 5-0.
All right, thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Treasurer Terry and supported by Secretary Davis Smith to approve the amended agenda. Any questions? Roll call.
Trustee Dooley. President Hannah,
Yes.
Trustee Miller,
All right. Yes.
Treasurer Terry,
Yes.
and I'm voting yes. That's 5-0.
All right, thank you very much. Continuing down the agenda, good evening again, trustees. We do not have any communications, petitions, and delegations. Next up is superintendent reports. Dr. Leverett, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Hannah. Good evening, trustees. At this time, we had several snow days, and so we're at this juncture where we're happy to have the Department of Curriculum and Instruction provide presentations. And we will also start with Ms. Tanya Dixon, just providing an update on, do you want to wait? Are you ready? Yep. So yes, please brief the board on the information as it relates to student count. I know that she'll come before us on March 16th board meeting to have a more thorough report.
Point of clarity, please. Ms. Dixon has expressed that she doesn't have her materials. I think it would not be beneficial for us to waste our time when she doesn't have her material, and we're going to hear her at a later date. I would suggest that we wait so she'd be more prepared.
I will say this, that I spoke with the auditor today, and she'll be finished with the fall audit this Friday. So I will have everything for March 16th or March 23rd. Is that okay?
Okay, but we spoke earlier and I asked you to be prepared to speak to the board, Trustee Dooley, as it relates to the question that Trustee Miller posed around the count.
Right.
But March 16th, does that work for all of us?
Yeah.
Thank you, President Hannah. To Dr. Leverett, the reason I asked specifically about the count is because I am now the delegate for Government Relations Committee, and I went to the first meeting, and we discussed in great detail about the legislative bills that are going through the House and Senate, and we discussed about the newly approved budget from the government and from the state of Michigan. And a lot of it was based upon our count. And I realized I haven't received the count. So I was just doing my fiduciary duty to see where we stood in the count from October and from the most recent one in February, understanding that the February count may not be available. But more specifically, I was requesting the October count just to see where we were with our numbers to see, so we can plan as we continue, as we begin talking about the 2026-27 budget, where we are with our student count.
So what I shared with Dr. Leverett, I think it was earlier this week, were the attendance percentages and the students that actually attended count. I presented or gave every percentage for each school in the district, so you know where they set as relates to the percentages for attendance. But when I spoke to the auditor today, she told me that she was still finalizing things for the fall count. And so I know that you asked for the spring count, and she can't give a date as to when she'll be finished with the spring count because she's not finished with the fall. So she said that she's hoping to have that by Friday. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I'm sorry.
I did review the document with the percentages. My concern is on the document that was presented to the board, there was no indicators as to what the percentages represented. So if it was like 86.7%, is that 86.7% of 100% of what number? So my follow-up question was, okay, what do these percentages represent?
Okay. So when we're always after to get a perfect count. So in order to get count, we have to make sure that all the students are enrolled and scheduled. So that percent that you're looking at is the percent of students that actually are enrolled and scheduled that came to school on that day. So when you see 86%, that's saying of an 86 greater, less than 100. So we're missing, I can't do the math right now, but that's how many students came to school that day. So we have an overall percentage, which the auditor looks at when she determines our days of instruction at the end of the year, which we always have to be above 75. And we have the individual schools that I gave you. Okay. So 86 is pretty good. It's not 100, but it's pretty good. And so what she's going to do is look at everything and determine if that 86% is correct. But we made sure that all the students were enrolled before count and scheduled with attendance. Yes, ma'am.
This is my last question.
Okay.
My subsequent question was, I requested the actual numbers, like, okay, did we have 3,600 students in totality on count day in October, 4,100 students, because I want to use that as comparative data from 2024 to see if our enrollment is on an increase or if it's on a decline or if it has remained stagnant. So I did review the percentages and I appreciate those, but it would be beneficial if I had concrete numbers to know where we stand as a district with the enrollment, to be able to compare it to where we were last year and make a projection of where we will be for 2026, 2027 school year.
Okay. I could do that before we leave. I could just sit back there and I could get
Thank
it to
you.
before we leave. No problem.
Thank you so
And
much. I
Dr.
appreciate
Leverett, I
it.
hope I didn't embarrass you because I totally misunderstood when you said come.
No, you didn't.
I would have had
You're a
everything
team, so I
all
appreciate
ready
you.
for you.
Thank you
Okay,
very
thank
much.
You said, of course, Rennie.
You did not embarrass Dr. Leverett.
Not at all.
I will say that I'll take the ownership that I should have provided more clarity in my initial email, because you did provide the document through Dr. Leverett and she gave it to the board. I just wanted to know, based upon my meeting with the government relations, the numbers, but you did fulfill the request with presenting the document. So Dr. Leverett, thank you for facilitating
You're
that.
welcome.
So no,
Okay.
I just need another request.
Okay.
So I appreciate
No
it.
problem. I'll
Thank
have
you.
it for you before we leave here.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Tanya. Appreciate it.
Ms. Dixon, it's just that most of the stuff we receive doesn't have the keys on the bottom that indicate. So that was the only thing. So moving forward, you and your colleagues, just be inclusive of that key that will give
Sure.
us
No problem.
meaningful direction to what we're reading.
Not a problem.
Thank you,
I can
babe.
do that.
I mean, no disrespect on you.
No problem. Okay. You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, moving on, Dr. Devison with our curriculum and instruction updates.
Good afternoon. So we being the curriculum and instruction, is going to pick up on where we left off from the last time that we met. And so the first person up is Dr. Alisea, who is going to go over bilingual and ESL education. Following him will be Ms. Felicia Jeter, who will go over the literacy piece. And then I believe it'll be myself going over math and also science. And then at some point, Ms. Uploading, Dr. Parkman will be doing the special education portion.
Thank you, Dr. Davison, and buenas tardes. Thank you for this opportunity. It's always a pleasure to talk to you about our bilingual and ESL program. I want to begin by saying thank you to the board and for administrative staff of supporting our growing number of English learner students in the Pontiac School District. You know, we're experiencing some uncertain times in the country right now, and there's a lot of anxiety in terms of immigration and our immigration status of our students in the district. 1/3 of our student enrollment are English learners in Pontiac. We have the largest student enrollment of English learners in Oakland County. And I feel our students feel safe here. Our parents feel safe. They feel safe coming to school. And I attribute that to the support that we get through our board and our administrative staff. And I thank you for that. We've also been able to have a partnership with Oakland University, who provided some professional learning for our administrators as well as our staff, just to cover some points of reference of what it's like to be bilingual, some of the historical background, and some of the strategies that we deal with immigration students. And lastly, what are some of the protocols that we follow in the district regarding our immigration if ICE happens to be around our school district, and how we deal with those situations. Okay, next slide. Okay. So one of the things that we are in the process now of doing is updating our handbook. We are currently being audited by the Michigan Department of Education, and one of the requirements is to have an updated ESL program handbook, which helps to support our teachers in guiding them on best practices to ensure that they are offering best support for our ESL students in terms of identifying them, assessing their language proficiency level, and making sure that we are meeting them at the level that they are at. Along those lines, we have initiated monthly meetings with our ESL teachers, and those meetings are guarded times that they are able to meet to discuss what's happening in their individual buildings. Even though we're one school district, each building has their own climate within the building, and there have been some specific points that our staff had to deal with in terms of challenges that are happening in that particular building. And particularly our middle and high school students, that we get newcomers that are coming into the district. Many times those students are coming in with interrupted schooling, or they're a grade level behind, and they may have little or no English language proficiency. So we make sure we are able to provide them the support that they need at the level that they need it, so that they are not feeling that the curriculum's not being watered down to meet their English language needs. One of the challenges we're facing is finding highly qualified ESL teachers in the district. We have partnered with Wayne State University for an ESL endorsement program called SEED. We've had so far 9 teachers in Pontiac who has gone through the program and are now have their ESL endorsement and are working in supporting our ESL population. So that is a big plus because it's very difficult. There's a critical shortage statewide regarding ESL staff. So growing our own really helps because these teachers already know the community they're serving, and they're at a better point to support those students. And again, it's important for them to feel connected to the staff that they're working with, and that they have some kind of connection with their the trauma that some of our students and families are experiencing. Next slide. Very happy to announce that just recently I got an email. Our graduating seniors for this year that are coming up, we have 23 seniors at ITA who have met the Seal by Literacy Award, and that's an award that's issued by the Michigan Department of Education for seniors who have demonstrated proficiency in English and one other language. So they're going to get special recognition. We have 23 seniors at ITA and 25 seniors at Pontiac High School. So that's almost 50 students in Pontiac that are receiving that award for graduation. So that's a big plus. And we continue to strengthen the two-way communication between the home and the school. We make certain that communications that are sent home are in both languages for our parents to feel included. And also, we are sensitive to the fact that there are some times when there are school activities, some parents may be a little reluctant to come and participate because of the fear of their status in being. And I want to thank Trustee Dooley for mentioning that to me, which I did not know, that we have some businesses in the Pontiac School District that are kind of working against in terms of supporting ICE, and which is very unfortunate because Pontiac has such a large EL population, and that is very unfortunate that we're dealing with some businesses and also some community members who have that mentality, especially in Pontiac, which this is a demographic that we're serving. So thank you for that. And I think these are just some of the multi-tiered support systems that we have in place, that we ensure that our teachers are culturally and linguistically responsive teaching, have highly qualified instruction, and particularly for students that are newcomers, being able to differentiate instruction. Again, not watering down the curriculum, but meeting the students from where they're at. I've been working with Felisa Jeter in literacy to make sure the students that are coming in at the middle school and high school level that need basic phonics sounds that they haven't received in elementary level, they're being offered those skills, but at the level of the grade level that they're at, and not maybe kindergarten materials where they will feel little, uncomfortable working with those materials. And I think it's again, these are other strategies. SIOP, I know some of you have heard about SIOP. SIOP is sheltered instruction learning. Absolutely. I couldn't think of it. That's exactly right. And those are research-based skills that they use scaffolding, they use visual aids, vocabulary development, and we have trained all of our ESL staff, and also we are doing walkthroughs in our school buildings to make sure that our staff are aware of that. And I think that's it. Oh, the next steps. Next step is to continue building on our English learners students' background. Sometimes it takes a little time to get to know the students that are in your classroom and what they've been through to get into your classroom to be able to teach them effectively, and also to have a little sensitivity to the parents. I always give credit, even if staff members can say one or two words in Spanish, it means a lot to parents to feel that they're making an effort to make that connection at home, and then they feel welcome for that. And we are currently in the process of our WIDA testing. WIDA is the state test they use to measure English language proficiency. It tests the 4-language domain of reading, speaking, listening, and writing. Usually it's the speaking and the writing part that our students have challenges with. So we're being more intentional to focus on more writing on a daily basis, and also speaking tests. Speaking part is one of the assessment pieces that that's unique to WIDA state testing, where the students actually have to record their speaking, and it's recorded and it's graded. So we are now emphasizing that students have more opportunity in their classroom for dialogue so they can develop those English language skills. I think that's it for me. If there's any questions or comments.
Comment.
Yes.
The SIOP, the Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol, was very helpful for me when I was in the classroom. Are you still doing that for your teachers, sending them over to Oakland schools?
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up. That we do, and we also have staff who have been trained to trainer model. So it is an effective strategy. It's as you know, language acquisition is a process that takes place.
Absolutely.
So it's something that has to be intentional on a daily basis for it to be effective.
And one thing I would just like to suggest, that the classroom start putting both the Spanish and the English word of just basic things around the room.
Yes.
The door, the window, lights, and that's how we will acquire, or some of the students, it will help them acquire.
Absolutely.
As well as seeing the visual for
Absolutely.
being able to recall and spell. So that's just
I totally agree
a
with you.
strategy I'd like to
Even though
encourage.
our program is English as a second language, we do promote their native language development as well, because it will help them develop their English language skills. And plus, it also contributes to the fact that we have almost 50 students who are getting a certificate in both languages. So thank you for that. Okay.
Any other questions, trustees? Comments?
I do want to thank all of you,
Thank
really
you.
sincerely. I really appreciate you. And yeah, gracias, gracias, gracias. And I will turn it over to my lovely colleague, Felicia Jeter, literacy, so she can share.
Good evening. As he stated, my name is Felicia Jeter. I'm the literacy supervisor for the district.
Good evening, Ms.
Um,
Jeter.
It is a pleasure to speak to you all tonight. I wanted to start with the literacy vision. We worked with the teachers as well as the building administrators to try to come up with something that would guide our work in literacy. Because in the past, we really didn't have like a vision for how literacy is going to work in the district and our expectations of literacy. So we did a lot of work trying to develop one that encompassed what we felt we wanted to, our desire with literacy. So also some successes. We had some great successes for literacy. We are participating in the FAME, the Formative Assessment for Michigan Educators. I have one coach participating in it, with hopefully some more joining next year, just to kind of help teachers understand how important formative assessment is and how to use it to guide instruction within their classroom. My elementary literacy coaches are participating in the dyslexia cohort. As you know, the PA 146 has passed, so we have till 227, 28 to kind of make sure that we are knowledgeable about dyslexia and the characteristics of it. The secondary AARI teachers, they were trained in piloting an advanced foundational program for middle school and high school students. So those students who may have not solidified their phonics skills in the elementary are now getting additional support with that in the secondary school. We have the disciplinary literacy cohort that was working with the Pontiac High School that talks about how literacy is not just in ELA, but in math, science, and social studies, as well as beyond the core in art, music, and gym as well, how we can incorporate some literacy into those areas as well. That is being expanded to Pontiac Middle School as well as to ITA, where we have a cohort of teachers that are being trained and they're going to go back and support their colleagues in their buildings. We have been doing leader labs with administrators as we go around observing classrooms and making sure to see how instruction is happening in the classrooms, and teacher labs as well, where teachers are going to observe each other in the classroom. And we've been doing a lot with around the district, around the county, sharing our story. I had the fortunate of presenting with the Michigan Department of Education at the Special Population Conference, as well as presenting to the U.S. Department of Education. The literacy coaches have been presenting at the MIMTSS conference, as well as Oakland schools. I am happy to report that the MyCLSD grant has been utilized and spent. Some of the things that we purchased are on the screen: book vending machine, diverse libraries for pre-K to 12th grade. We did a lot with training staff on curriculum resources, as well as providing stipends. We did book fairs in the summer, provide family literacy kits, and we also use it to refresh some of the libraries and to do the cohort. We were acknowledged for how we utilize our funds by the Michigan Department of Education, and that is why I had to present to the U.S. Department of Education. And here are some of the students over the summer. The high school, the middle school students participated in reading and selecting books that they wanted to see in their library. So they came in and did that. And then we did a book fair as well for the elementary and the middle school and high school. And the kids really enjoy that. We were able to find out what type of books kids were interested in by seeing what type of books they selected. Another success came from the cohort, the Wit and Wisdom cohort. Miss Pali Zhong, which is a kindergarten teacher, participated in the cohort, and one of the things she shared was the information that she learned she took back to her classroom and use it in her class. So this is just kind of a snippet. Ms. Young was also asked to record herself and share her teaching with other districts because of the way that she taught the Wisdom program. So this is just a snippet of her teaching her students. And this is kindergarten in December, so it's still fairly new within the year. But the learning that they have shown is great. The volume. No.
What was wrong?
Oh. Okay, unfortunately, we can't hear the volume, but this is her doing a think, pair, share, where she asks the students to describe what is the essential meaning of the text. One little girl said, "We're supposed to talk about the essential meaning." So it was very heartwarming to see students. And one thing she did share with me is she doesn't hold anything back from her students. She want to challenge them and challenge their thinking. We did observe her last year at the end of the year, and her students were reading, they were writing, and they were having really engaging discussions around books and literacy. Let me just hear a little bit. So some challenges, consistency across grades and buildings. As we are doing some implementation walkthroughs, we noticing that there are some people or some classrooms that are not consistent or using the resource as it intended. And that could cause some gaps in students' learning. So we're trying to increase the consistency across grades, because with a lot of our resource, students build upon that knowledge, not just from module to module, but from year to year. So that's important that we have that. Administering and analyzing data from the core resources. We know we have the iReady data, the MSTEP data, but what is happening in the classroom? So we want to increase administering that data and analyzing the data from what the students are learning and making sure that they're learning what is being taught. Adherence to the pacing guide has been a big one. Over the few years, we have one of our resources have 4 modules, but we found that teachers would only get through module 1 or module 2, which leaves a gaps in students' education because there's 4 modules and each module covers the standards. So the standards is if they complete all 4, then we have all the standards for that grade level. So making sure that we're adhering to the pacing guide. One of the biggest challenges that we've always had is training on the curriculum resources. One of our resources, the phonics resource, is 30 hours of training, and trying to find time to get teachers 30 hours of training, especially now since the MyCLSD grant is over, and we used a lot of that to cover not just the cost of the training, but to provide stipends for teachers to come in during breaks or, summer and things like that. Another challenge is focusing on tier 3 or tier 2 instruction. While I'm saying it shouldn't be focused on it, but the great focus on it means that we're not focusing on tier 1. And tier 1 is where we get the biggest impact to make sure that students do not have to enter into tier 2 and tier 3. So adding additional interventionists or adding additional intervention classes are not going to give us as big of an impact as ensuring that they never have to have tier 2 or tier 3 instruction. So making sure tier 1 is really solidified. Maintaining curriculum resources and materials. I constantly do replace materials. I do try to, whenever I can, kind of get some extra ones or collect ones that aren't being in use, so that if teachers lose their materials or if they're damaged, that they can be replaced without additional cost to the district. But that has been a challenge. Teacher turnover has also been a challenge, because once you train teachers, they get to take that knowledge with them. So that means that we have to train up a new teacher. So that has also been a challenge. The lack of understanding regarding the science of reading has been a challenge. Understanding that reading isn't just being able to read, but also comprehend. And then there's fluency pieces to that. So we've been doing a lot of training around the simple view of reading and Scarborough Rope, and how reading actually works and where our resources fits into the science of reading. And then teaching resources as attended. While I do understand teachers want to have some autonomy and some freedom, sometimes we have to make sure that when we do take those liberties, that they're not impacting student achievement. So making sure that resources are taught as attended has been something that we really wanted to focus on as well. So,
Jeter,
yes.
I'm sorry. I have a question for you.
Mhm.
When you mentioned that about teaching resources, it made me think about something when we had Miss Dr. Krantz here and part of the listening session. And one of the biggest things that we heard a response about was about wit and wisdom.
Mhm.
So can you help us to understand where we are now?
Mhm.
It seemed to be a consensus or a lot that they didn't like the curriculum. So can you help us understand, talk to us a little bit about wit and wisdom, what it's intended to do? How are our teachers responding to it now? Because another thing that I think it was shared that they didn't fully understand how to implement it,
Mhm.
which is why some weren't using it and could have been part of why they didn't like it.
Mhm.
But help us understand, when did we get wit and wisdom? Because I know before we can just cut out a curriculum, we have to replace it with something. So we have to do some research to find a curriculum that we can replace instead of just doing away with a whole curriculum right now because our teachers don't like it and we don't have anything to substitute it with. So if you can talk to us more about
Yes.
that.
Okay, so the science of reading or scholarly world is broken into two parts: word recognition and language comprehension. So word recognition is the coding piece, so that's the how to read piece. Language comprehension is the comprehension piece, so that's how to comprehend. Wit and Wisdom is a comprehension program, so it does not teach students how to read, it teaches students how to comprehend. So Phonics First is our reading comprehension. That teaches kids how to read text. Wit and Wisdom is based on the science of reading and as well as the state standards. As a matter of fact, some of the books, if you go into the appendices, literally comes from the appendices of the state standards. And what it is that students have to engage with complex text. Complex text is text that has complex themes, complex topics, complex sentence structures, and is not necessarily designed for students to read themselves, but it is designed for them to build their comprehension. And we know if we are already learning to read and struggling with the coding, then it breaks down the comprehension. So those texts are really designed for teachers to read and facilitate and support. If you go into the state standards, reading literature, excuse me, 10, as well as reading information 10 covers complex text. And it talks about complex text is supposed to be done with the adult support. So there, and it's K all the way up to 12th grade. These are not texts that we put in kids' hands and say, go forth and read. These are texts that we slowly, gradually release responsibility to students. So beginning readers will be using those texts as read aloud. So teachers are reading and asking text-dependent questions. They're supporting students with understanding text, word vocabulary. They're doing author's purpose, things like that. When they start to pick up some decoding skills, then it becomes a shared, you do, I do kind of thing, where students may read some of the text, but teachers have to read some of the text. But the teacher is still asking those text-dependent questions and building those comprehension skills. And then when they become more of a skilled reader, then students can read and comprehend those texts themselves. So it moves from having word recognition and language comprehension has to be taught simultaneously both times. So you can't say, I'm just going to do phonics, because then you'll have students who can read but can't comprehend. And you can't say, well, I'm going to just focus on comprehension, because then you'll have students who can comprehend but can't read. So you have to do both of them. And by doing both of them, as students get better, it turns into reading comprehension, which is what we want students to do. Yes.
I had a follow-up question in regards to wit and wisdom as it relates to Dr. Krant's report. Anonymously, many teachers reported that wit and wisdom was ineffective and or they didn't have all the tools and resources to effectively teach wit and wisdom. So my question is, if we are going to continue with this curriculum, has it been verified that the teachers don't have the materials that they have addressed that they don't have? And if that has been verified, when will our teachers have all the materials that are needed so that they can effectively teach this curriculum that we are maintaining?
So I would say this, we have to understand the difference between want and need, because some of that is, this is what I want, not necessarily what I need. We always had every resource that we're supposed to have for Wit and Wisdom. Matter of fact, we have a lot more than what we even supposed to have. Every teacher has the textbooks for them. Every teacher has the student workbooks. There have been times when I went into classroom and they're not using the student workbooks. They also have a backup. So if there is not a physical student workbook, there is a digital workbook, because we have both the physical copies as well as the digital copies. So they have way more than what they need. So I really did not understand what the not having a resource was, because when I asked if, oh, well, I have this, I have that. So I don't know what that was, or what it is that they need in addition to what they have. Yes.
Just reading from Dr. Krantz' report, some of the teachers reported that they don't have the supplementary, what was it, like games, or as far as it relates to math. What does it say, Dr.? Math. So
Yeah,
is that an addition, or is that something that's required for Wit and Wisdom?
I'm literacy. There's no
Oh, I'm
no
sorry.
games. There's no
I retract
games.
that question. I
No,
apologize.
and I will also say this. One thing that I do is I go and I ask teachers, hey, what is it, something that I can make? And I even purchased a Cricut out of my own money to create like the question cube, so teachers didn't have to create them themselves. So we do, as a literacy team, try to say, okay, what is it that we can take off of teachers to kind of help them so they can focus on the planning and the instructional decisions and the things like that. So we do provide a lot of different things for teachers to have. We even have slides, like there's slides that are already pre-created for teachers. Now, they may not like the slides, and that's okay, but they are there.
Well, thank you for clarifying. My apologies for asking you a question that is related to a different subject. So thank you, but thank you for clarifying. I appreciate it.
No problem.
So in your professional learning communities, your PLCs, it might be a good idea for the teachers to go through in their planning and create those type of strategies or activities that can be conducive to learning. We talked about the skill of comprehension and then reading. Well, you're absolutely right. Reading is fluency, the ability to just pronounce the words. The understanding is the comprehension. So my question would be, what are you doing to facilitate that? And then, as you stated yourself, your testimony, that our students are below reading level, and there's a big gap. What kind of things are you implementing to occur in the classroom? Because we have to bring those students up to a level of understanding to be able to comprehend. So I would like to suggest that 5-10 minutes go back to phonemics for everyone, phonics, like we used to do, drop everything and read for 15 minutes. Some of those strategies that we've eliminated through the years were the ones that gave us foundational footing. So I'd like to suggest that. We also talked about materials, which provoked my thinking. What has been done to all of that material when I came on the board that was found over at the Feld Center, over at the high school, and in the middle school closets as well? Are we utilizing that material? Because we can adapt. When you have teachers that are trained and skilled, the adaptability to spiral up and down should just be second nature. It should not be a hard thing to do. Also, another thing that I think would help in the literacy piece would be to—
Trustee Dooley, let's let her answer one question at a time, because you
I'm
made
just
some
doing
really good
statement.
points.
I'm just doing statement. I don't need a rebuttal. I'm just
Okay.
trying to share with her some things that
Okay.
if she could mark them, or if her mental capacity probably
Okay. Well,
is
she
absorbed.
looked like she wanted to respond, but then you kept going.
Okay.
So I just wanted to give her a chance to respond.
And
'cause you
then
made some good
finally,
points.
it's not the curriculum, it's the material, because what we're taught is mandated from MDE, Michigan Department of Education. So that's not something that we can necessarily change ourselves, but we can change the delivery of instruction of how our students learn. And because we know they're coming in with a deficit, we need to adjust our delivery of instruction to accommodate their capacity to learn. I yield the floor.
And I'm going to try to help clarify as much as I can. I'm trying to remember. Okay, so you are correct. So the resources in the FAIL Center serve two purposes. We do keep a little extra on hand. It may look like a lot, but it's really not. It's not even a class set full or even 2 class set fulls. And that's because when we have an influctuation of students, or because we always based it on the previous year numbers. So we may get more students, we may get less students. So we always get those out of first. So when at the end of the year, when I go and I say, okay, what do you need for next year? We go into the FAIL Center and we move those out. So they're always being recycled out. In the buildings, those are resources that the buildings are supposed to deliver to students and to teachers. So if they have an extra set in the building, then that should be in the hands of the teachers. And sometimes what I find is teachers say, well, I don't want to use this resource. And I have an issue with that. I'm going to be honest, because we're purchasing them. And if you don't want them, then that needs to be told to me so that we can use that money somewhere else. Instead of just purchasing more and more resources. But those resources that are in the building are the building's responsibility to get out to their teachers and into the hands of the students. The other thing is, I'm trying to remember all the things that you said. But we do have embedded time for fluency building, and that's the small group time. So there is 30 to 35 minutes for small group instruction embedded in the schedule every single day. Now, I'm just going to leave that there. But there is 30 to 35 minutes. And I have been pushing this thing about, okay, how are students practicing? Because it's not enough just to teach the students. So I can teach you the letter says A or the letter A says A. But if you are not practicing that skill repeatedly and over, then it really is just laying there. So I have been sharing this message of phonics is for teaching it, but math, science, and reading is for using it. So you have to have kids use those skills. There is fluency embedded within Wit and Wisdom. There's fluency embedded within Phonics First. They have learning A through Z books. They have guided reading books. They have geo books. There are like a lot of books that are available to teachers to use and for them to use with students. So we have a lot of books and materials for students to read. So I do agree that fluency has to be a part of it. And that's the thing that we're finding is that students have language comprehension, but they don't have strong decoding skills, or they have strong decoding skills and they don't have fluency. So we have to kind of look at how are we bridging all those things. And that's the thing that we're doing with teachers now, as well as administrators, helping them understand how reading works in the reading process, where each of our resources fits in the process. The other thing you mentioned about the curriculum, this curriculum, MDE has a list of tier 1 curriculum. I don't know if you all know that districts are required to choose from. Wit and Wisdom is on that list. This resource have almost perfect scoring on Ed Report, as well as Johns Hopkins University. It has been featured in blogs, our science and research articles. It is a very strong resource. I have had teachers say that they feel more confident when going into the M-STEP and administering the M-STEP. I had a teacher yesterday that was grateful for participating in the cohort because of the learning that she had. I even had students tell me that the words that they saw in the books that they read were actually on the M-STEP. It was on the M-STEP. And I have witnessed myself some really amazing conversations with students, where students are having really good conversations about literacy. One little second grader said, the question was, how do we learn more about the books? And she said, well, we can analyze the text. And that's a second grader, and kindergartners who are now being able to give you the synonym for words. It was like, what's a synonym for a long time ago? It's the past. It means the past. It's history. So we are hearing conversations that I have not heard from the students since when I started 10 years ago.
One last suggestion to extend learning beyond the classroom. Have you, as a literacy coach or supervisor, and even to Dr. Deverson in her position as curriculum overseer, recording lessons to extend beyond the classroom, because the repetitiveness, it also would facilitate lessons not missed by students that were absent, because you could set them in their small group to view the lesson. But I'm concerned about you saying 30 minutes provided for small groups when we know classrooms are overloaded. I'm concerned, having been in the classroom, how is that being delivered? It's almost utterly impossible. Keeping it real.
Yeah, and that time could be used by the
So-
students read, by giving students books to read, and the teacher walk around and monitor the students reading and stuff. So there's ways to still do it, even with the large number of students. But students have to have time to build their fluency and read books. So even though, I mean, that's just the nature of beast of having the large classrooms. So how do you use and adapt that time so the students are still getting what they're supposed to have? So it may not be pulling a group of students. It may say, okay, we're going to use this time to build their reading fluency, but a teacher is just going around and just listening in on students reading, and that could be used in that way too. One of my first bullets for the next step is developing training modules for new teachers. So we have been recording our trainings and putting them into a Google Classroom so teachers can have them. But Wit and Wisdom also does provide in sync videos. So there are videos of someone teaching the lessons. So if students are absent or sick or need to catch up, those videos are available for students as well. But one thing that I'm trying to do is record our own teachers doing it. So Miss Padi was kind enough to allow me to record her so that we can see that this is doable within our district. And that was the point of the cohort. So teachers will have another colleague in their building that knows how to teach, that has had deeper understanding and training on this resource.
But aren't you doing professional learning communities?
Yeah, so each building
that's
does
the
a
group.
professional learning community.
So they have partners. They have people to build
These are teachers.
competency.
These are teachers who were trained and have received extensive training in the resource. So they are trained to train and support their others. So they model the lessons. They do those things with the teacher. So if they get a new teacher or a teacher who have questions, there's somebody in their building that could answer those questions. So they have their colleagues, they also have coaches, and they have myself. It's just another way to add additional professional development and job embedded support for teachers. And we're trying to cover all the bases. So some of the other next step is to increase parent workshops, Pontiac parent partnerships. One thing that I did in the past was I went around and trained and supported parents with understanding the resources and how to support their children at home. I would love to increase literacy events. Do some district literacy events that focus on literacy and help parents to understand how they can, reach literacy in their class, in their homes. We're going to continue to train teachers and administrators on reading research and how reading works. And we're going to increase our implementation walkthrough by grade levels to support teachers and to have they have any questions. So we want to make sure that teachers have all of this job embedded support that we can get provided. And, and with everything, there's going to be some people that don't like it, some people that like it, and some people that love it. So it's just going to be one of those things. And like I said, it is on the Michigan Department of Education required resources. It was approved and vetted by Michigan Department of Education. So we have that as well.
Thank you, Ms. Jeter. Any other questions or comments for Ms. Jeter? Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening. I stand before you as a math educator, as I did teach math. I know that I'm not over the math, but I did teach math, so I am a lover of math. So I did want to open with that. And so I'm just going to do the slides for math. Ms. Jeter or Ms. Dr. Alisay, I should have told you all before I came up if we could get someone to change the slide. So I just wanted to provide a quote, which was provided by Stacy Jackson, who is our math supervisor. Mathematic achievement is one of the strongest predictors of whether a child will graduate, attend college, or access a living wage career. In that sense, math is not just an academic issue, it is a civil rights issue. With that being said, our current reality is that we have a performance gap is large and persistent. And again, we are aware of that. Secondary level is particularly vulnerable. Staffing ratios aren't enough without instructional strength and equity imperatives. So I wanted to pause there just so that I would probably need the slides as we are asking questions. So are there any questions for this particular slide? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for addressing the performance gap. My question is more for the future of our students. Considering that the data that we were presented, that 88% of our students are reading and math 2 or more grade levels below, what has been implemented to make sure that our students are taught at a level so they can so that they can compete at least at their grade level? Because we received this data several times and it's quite disturbing. And I just want to know, as a curriculum, what curriculum has been implemented or what changes have been discussed or made to bring our students up to at minimum where they need to be at grade level?
So just as a quick answer, as I am not the math supervisor, but I am a smart cookie, as it relates to that, what I will say is the requirement is that we teach tier 1. We are required to teach 1 and we're required to teach at grade level. Then the second space for that is that we have interventions. So right now we're in a cycle of program evaluations through Michigan Department of Ed. And with the program evaluations, we are evaluating some of the programs that we do to see the success or not success. So we're in that season right now with the Michigan Department of Ed with evaluating programs. And the way that we do that is looking at data and then making decisions. So we're in that process. Right now we have met twice from 9 to 3, and we meet again on this Friday, but it is a cycle that we're going through to get to that space. I hope that that helped.
Thank you, Dr. Devison. I appreciate the clarity. Is there a timeline or anticipated completion date that this will be finalized? My reason and concern for asking that question is that every day that goes by, our students that are not proficient and they're 2 or more grade levels below are getting further and further behind. So that's why I'm asking for a timeline and a deadline when this will be completed so the departments can analyze the data and make any necessary adjustments.
So I want to say a couple of things. We are required to finalize the partnership schools. The partnership schools would be Pontiac Middle School, Harrington Elementary. And so we are finalizing that, and those final updates will be by the end of March. End of March. But with that being said, it's like an ecosystem. You're constantly reviewing this data. You will never finalize the data because we're constantly looking at, okay, is it attendance? Is it curriculum and instruction? There's a number of things that you have to look at on a consistent basis. So when I think about finality, that would be an infinity. We are constantly going to be looking at data and making data decisions.
So certainly, education is a living document. It continuously grows. So as we look toward the future and trying to eliminate the performance gap, where are you with your summer school plans? We are, might as well say we're going to be in the month of March next week. And
I'm glad that you said that. So we actually are going to be giving you all the summer school announcements. We have already been meeting with the summer school. So the one thing that I would say,
wasn't quite finished.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you was. I'm sorry.
So, and with that, what mechanisms do you have in place to identify those students that need to be mandated to attend based on, especially if we look at the high school? Let's look at them getting ready to graduate and we look at those numbers and credits. do you have anyone doing the audit on their grades, on their, that type of thing, so we can know who we're dealing with. And not, last year it approached us very quickly, and we were trying to get materials at the end because someone was sick, that type of thing. So we don't have the bumps in the road moving forward. If we're on the front end addressing this, that's why I'm bringing it out. In order, that's one of the things we can start doing to try to level, is to bring those students up and definitely identify them and mandate that they have to attend based on where their credits are. Those types of things I would like to be addressed.
So I'm gonna breathe in and breathe out, because that's a great strategy. So I want to start with Trustee Dooley. Last year, we did not have a challenge as it related to ordering supplies for summer school. We did have a challenge as it related to ordering materials for the fiscal year. But the one thing that I will say is that I take pride in is that summer school last year, we had the materials that we needed, and we actually had students sign up. So remember last year, President Hannah started doing the announcements in February. So we're in a space currently where we're going to do the announcements. The one thing I want to say is that we can't really mandate anyone to come to summer school, but what we do is we have the building administrators meet with the teachers, and they look at the iReady NWEA data, and we give a high recommendation about students attending summer school. So in April, last year in April, and this year in April at the parent teacher conferences, we had stations, and we will have stations this year to sign people up for summer school. We strongly suggest, of all the students, once we look at the data on who should attend. At the elementary, we really don't have a challenge with getting people enrolled, but the one thing that I will say is it's not always the students that we believe need to be enrolled. And then at the high school, what we're looking at currently is that we offer summer school, but we have not been successful with getting math teachers to teach. So even in our discussions currently, we're talking about, should we do credit recovery as opposed to offering like Algebra 1, Algebra 2, because we have not been successful with hiring those teachers. So to your point, Trustee Dooley, we have started the planning for summer school. We identify students that should be enrolled. But normally we get, like last year when we looked at the data, and even 2 years at this point, at the middle school, we had over 70% of our population of the students that attended summer school at the middle school, and maybe more, were our Hispanic families. So the first year we identified that we had to change the dynamics, because we were trying to teach one thing, but that wasn't the population that sat in front of us. So I think I answered your question. Next slide. So some of the successes as it relates to math, district-wide curriculum alignment, guaranteed viable math pacing guides, common assessment windows and benchmarks, and then the teacher capacity targeted PD, ELL, and intervention strategies, and PLC structured strengthened. Next slide. So when we think additional success would be tier 2, tier 3 small group interventions, summer learning and credit recovery, diagnostic based placement for struggling students, and a culture shift, increased walkthroughs and instructional feedback, and instructional expectation becoming consistent. So one thing I do want to pause at that space, when I think about listening to Ms. Jackson, she is always talking about getting teachers and also students and also parents out of being in the fear of mathematics. So that's the one thing that we're trying to change as it relates to culture shift, because if you, as you were a teacher, you know, at the elementary level, most of the teachers prefer to teach ELA. That is their comfort zone. And most people, they run from math. So that is one thing that we have been trying to change just across the board for students, staff, and also parents. Next slide. So the core challenges, we have a significant learning gap, chronic absenteeism absenteeism impacting school skill mastery, math anxiety, and low confidence. At the teacher level, inconsistent depth of math content knowledge, staff and inability, instability, and gaps in intervention skill set. Next slide. System level challenge, gaps between curriculum and daily instruction, math instruction misalignment, and then equity challenges, tier 2 and tier 3 placement, placing them appropriately, and then language access and instructional barriers. Next slide. So challenges, I see we have root cause and the impact. Inconsistent instruction, learning gaps will occur. Weak intervention systems, students fall further behind. Limited coach reach, teacher growth is uneven. Attendance issues, skill gap compound. So let me pause there. What I will say is, as curriculum and instruction, what we have been trying to do is do instructional walkthroughs by way of our high quality instruction walkthroughs and also some implementation walkthroughs. And that is done by the curriculum and instruction team. And we are creating that data to make some additional data decisions. Next steps would be to stabilize the systems and clarify expectations. Reaffirm instructional non-negotiables for daily math instruction. Conduct baseline walkthroughs in each building, which we have begun that work. Review tier 2 and tier 3 entry and exit criteria and intervention schedules to identify gaps in progress monitoring. Reassign coaching priorities to new teachers in tier 3 heavy classrooms. And again, I just want to pause there. As it relates to coaching, we have one elementary coach. We have had a coaching position posted, but no one has really applied. So we're still working on getting human resources in the building to make sure that we provide 100% services. Okay, again, next steps, shift from classroom practice to intervention consistency, targeted teacher development, embedded coaching cycles, which we just talked about, and then PLC redesign for math. Precision requires every PLC to analyze student work, identify misconceptions, and plan for targeted reteaching. Why this work cannot wait? Math is a gatekeeper of the opportunity for strong systems change life trajectories. So we talked about how math is of a fear, but if we can get kids to be more confident, adults to be more confident, this will, there's no equity without access to strong math instruction. There's no workforce readiness without math success. There's no system improvement without sustained commitment. This is not about test scores. This is about life outcomes. The science department. Oh, were there any other questions? Because I'm going to the science. Okay,
Yes,
go
okay.
for
I
it.
do have a question for
Sure.
you, Dr. Devison. Two things that you had touched on. One, needing math teachers for summer school. What is the process that we use now to identify teachers to teach summer school?
So we post the position like we would any other position, and then once we post, people apply. If you work in a district, we hire you based on that. It would be wonderful that we could hire based on, we know that your test scores are doing well, but we at this point sometimes accept teachers who apply, but then we provide training for that as well. But again, for the math in particular, we just have not received people who want to work. I'm gonna be honest, as a teacher, most teachers want the summers off. They don't really want to work. So we even have been intentional with that. We surveyed the teachers to find out when is the best time to do summer school. So this year, when we think about our summer school planning, we tried to do the whole month of July. So we're hopeful that if people know ahead of time when summer school is going to be, then they will be able to plan ahead of time. So we are trying to get the date out ahead of time so that if you planned a trip, you at least have that knowledge ahead of time.
So we don't necessarily only utilize those teachers that teach math. So if there is a teacher and say she teaches science, but she has an interest in teaching summer school, she's eligible to apply.
So she's eligible, but if she doesn't have a math cert, then we
She
would
don't have-
not put a math person in a
Okay.
science position or science and a math. Now, there is a caveat because we do have guest teachers. So I'm going to be honest, as an educator, I would prefer to hire someone who is highly qualified and certified in some area as opposed to a guest teacher. Please be mindful, guest teachers, please be mindful. I want to say that 10 times. We respect and honor you, but someone with a certification versus a guest teacher, that would be our preference. But we have some great guest teachers that can do above and beyond a certified teacher. We've witnessed that,
Yeah.
but that is always going to be our priority to get with the certified teacher first.
Okay.
I want to say that once again
Okay.
because we do have guest teachers in this district, and I do not want to disrespect them by any means. We need them. We love them. We can't do the work without them. And there are some that are performing better than. So please, quote, please.
And no, I'm just asking because I'm wondering if the students are struggling with math during the year and it's the same teachers that's teaching it during the school year, and then they're coming, if maybe a different face. Sometimes if they're hearing it from a different person, they could. So that was my reason for asking, what is the process for choosing those teachers? But have we considered working with organizations? I know Kumon is somebody maybe for the younger grades, but there are other OCC or other programs or schools that have math experts that do tutoring that we may consider partnering with just for the summer. And I say that because now it takes me into my next question. I know we cannot mandate students to come. We cannot require or make a child come to summer school. But I'm thinking if we made it more appealing, if we change the look of it so that it doesn't just feel like school again, especially when we're talking about them having to repeat those subjects that they didn't like in the first place, if we kind of find a way to make it more appealing, what you all did last year was awesome. It was more hands-on. And I think that's what drew a lot of the students to it. But even just changing the narrative or the type of what it is that we're doing could help encourage more students to participate. And again, you're putting different faces in the classrooms to teach or reiterate some of the concepts that they were working on during the school year, doing it during the summer. I'm just trying to figure out how we can work to change and close the gap. Just being creative. And again, what you all did last year was amazing because I remember going to the middle school and seeing those kids in there with that. It was enjoyable. And that's what we want the experience to be. When it comes to math, when it comes to high school, everybody don't like algebra, geometry. They don't like it. So I'm just trying to think of how can we make it more appealing for those students that need these credits in order to graduate. So that was my reason for asking.
Thank you for lending that. We would definitely consider some of those moving forward. But I will like to add that Harrington for this summer, they did receive a bomber grant. And so Harrington will be doing their own summer school K-5. So we're hopeful that we'll see something different for them. They are partnership schools. So again, we are constantly thinking of ways in which we can improve student achievement.
I just want to add to what President Hannah said. Perhaps we could get some of our high-level seniors to help teach math. Research-based shows that learners learn from one another easier too. Perhaps we could employ some of them as a summer employment, and then students usually want to hang out with the students, and then they can talk that lingo and learn the disciplines. So I would like that to be added into the discussion. If it's any way we can employ some, the higher levels, their grades substantiate the claim that they are able to be a tutor to another student. I saw something on the last slide that kind of, it took me back. This is not test scores. Well, this is not about test scores. Absolutely it is. That's how we're ranked. People look at test scores. Our test scores demonstrate whether I was a proficient teacher or not. That's how I was determined whether I was a proficient teacher, because they would go and look at what are the kids under my tutelage doing. So this is not about test scores. Absolutely it is, because how do we have measured outcomes if we're not using test scores?
So I'm going to be honest, I'm not the author of this,
Oh, no,
but
no, I'm just sharing.
but I just wanted to give my interpretation of it. I don't believe that Miss Stacy Jackson is saying it's not about test scores. What I think she's saying is that math is needed for life outcomes. If you look at, she's just giving you a trajectory of, if you do this will make you a life learner. I don't believe that she's saying not about test scores in that fashion. She's just saying, as a learner, a life outcome, you're going to need math.
And because we are in an academic arena, an educational institution, it is about test scores.
Duly noted.
And no pun intended.
I know it. Okay, as I breathe in and breathe out again, moving on to science. So Mr. Upton is our science supervisor, and with Mr. Upton, what I will say is that he's joined us with the expertise of just technology and utilizing different formats as it relates to YouTube videos and just getting people engaged. He talks about leading with purpose. Everyone stumbles as they climb uphill. Discover and support along the journey. Do not blame and shame. We are neither doing any of those things. So some of the successes is that the Foundation for Innovation facilitating best practices aligned with project-based learning. PD is one of the things that Mr. Upton and his department has been focusing on, producing engaging science through STEM videos. He's updated the virtual tour of the Pontiac Transportation Museum. So that was something that I know that all of the elementaries attended. We have coordinated the Bauer Farms field trip, a World in Motion with General Motors, and also Cranbrook and Pontiac High School internship program. The vision for the science instruction is advanced, coherent, standards-aligned framework for science teaching district-wide. Resources that are accessed, these are the resources that we offer. Free lab materials, multi-dimensional reading modules, and then there's a link where you can click on and actually go into that about boot science learning with MDRM, literacy meets inquiry. And then we have new initiatives, the project-based learning at ITA, moving in that direction for the middle school for next year. But PMS and Pontiac High School science teachers were able to move with ITA this school year. PBL Google Classroom Training Center, and includes targeted teacher training resources, and then professional development is collaborated with staff to collect and analyze survey data. We're utilizing the onboard documentations, protocols, and learning platforms. Next slide. Challenges, enhanced lab equipment, hands-on learning resources, assessment and data, expand knowledge of staff to analyze MSTEP data, continue to collect and analyze district survey data, professional learning gaps. It says mitigate impact of secondary science coach reduction by expanding online teacher resource hubs, and their systems and processes. Continue to develop a centralized protocol for data usage, instructional planning, and resource sharing, and then further curate the PBL Google Classroom Training Center. Some of the solutions would be systematizing resources, professional development, and innovative programming. So I know that I'm reading a lot, so I wanted to pause and give you some time if you had questions as it related to the science.
I just have a comment. It dropped in my spirit. As Dr. Hannah stated, to make it different, exciting. Think about this for summer school. I'm just talking about summer school. Integrate the 4 disciplines with a project, a hands-on project, and and I'm just off the top of my head. Social studies would be population demographics to the project. Math would be the money or creating a system or something like that. If a group could come together and create a project and then look at it, cross-reference what skill that addresses, that could be a different approach to summer school, totally. That can incorporate a field trip here or there to support some of the learning. But that came to me, that would be a different way to look at summer school. And then the overall grade, it would already be pieced, how math would be graded with their portion, English, all of that. So that would be a good, for me, that would be a good way to address something different for summer school.
Thank you. Next slide. So some of the next steps, support alignment of instructional practices with the standard and project-based learning, continue integrating progress-based learning, support access to well-rounded curriculum with diverse course offerings, and then equity and inclusion and resource access. Instructional technology innovation, support staff in effective use of educational technology, integrate AI, expand opportunities for real world engineering materials, challenges, and platforms, and then partnerships with STEAM actually, and project-based opportunities. Next slide. Up and loading is showing up. Mrs. Parkman for special services.
Greetings, everyone. Want to thank you again for welcoming me and having me here as your special education director at the Pontiac School District. I have learned and experienced a lot so far since November 24th. I say November 24th, my life has been different since then, so I will never forget that date. But so far, so good. I'm going to start with some successes, and I will say most of this presentation was compiled by your former director, as you can see. But here we. Oh no, it's okay. It's okay. We'll update it for the next time. All righty. So some successes. As you know, the district has some challenges with Medicaid billing compliance. I will say I did have an opportunity to meet with Oakland schools the other day with just a training for me to understand what their expectations are for Medicaid billing. Not that I'm not familiar with it, but just on a larger scale, we did get complimented on our Medicaid billing compliance. So you'll see here that the district was listed in the ISD County Monthly Newsletter last spring and this school year for Medicaid billing compliance. So kudos to us for Medicaid billing compliance. That's a huge deal. It is indicated here about the funding surrounded by Medicaid billing compliance, why it's so important. So for the fiscal year of 23, $354,476.24 was received in June of 2024, which was for the 22-23 school year. So as you can see, as you see the dates, you receive it the following year for the previous year. So for 2024, $596,210.74 was received in June 25, which was for the 23-24 school year. It is projected that for the fiscal year 25, which will come in June of 26, that was for the school year of 24-25. It is projected that more funding will come from the previous school year because we continue to be more and more compliant with our Medicaid billing. Timely billing. It's important, the timeliness of it. And then the same for the 26 school years, projected that in June 27, if we continue on this trend, that more funding, it'll be greater than the year prior. So I want to talk about speech and language.
Excuse me, Dr. Uploading.
Yes, ma'am.
You uploading your doctors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So is there a reason why you didn't give us a number for the projected monies, especially if you're saying that it's going to be projected to be more, then why wouldn't you at least give us the figures from the previous years? Is there a reason why that's not being? And then it says we're projected to be, we are now 100% compliant? Or is that what your projection is for the year 2027? I'm missing, because here it says we will receive June 2026, and then you have in parentheses, it's up there, I guess. Well, can't see it, that's small. Anyway, my question remains, is there a reason why you would not at least use the figures from 24 for 25, since you're saying it's projected to be more than the previous year? Why
So
would we use
when
those
this-
numbers?
When this presentation was provided to me by the previous director, these numbers, I did consult with the previous director, and I was told that those projections were not released at the time in which this presentation was prepared. So I can have the actual numbers for you. I can find out myself.
I mean, and of course, this is not a personal assault. It's just me asking, doing my due
not a problem.
diligence as a board trustee.
Absolutely. Moving on to speech and language. Alrighty, so speech and language services. There have been some speech and language services provided by Metro EHS, Pediatric Therapy in Bloomfield, and West Bloomfield, and Rochester. There's a critical shortage, as you heard when I presented the contract a couple weeks ago. There's a critical shortage of speech and language therapists, and that's been going on for a long time. So one of the remedies to meeting the needs of our early on students and students at Peace, and for compensatory services, was to reach out to Metro EHS for their pediatric speech and language therapy services. And so it says here for the 24-25 school year, 27 students were enrolled in the program. 13 received compensatory services for the summer of 25, and then 14 students currently scheduled and scheduling additional students for the early on in Peace and Whitman. So there were 14 students that have been added for this school year. The list is growing. Speech and language is a very large domain for students being referred for special education programs and services at the early on age.
Dr. Parkman, do you have an estimated amount of what we pay Metro Pediatrics for servicing these 27 students, what we spent this year? Do you have a ballpark figure?
No, but I can pull it up because I have seen some invoices on what has gone out during that time period.
And can you give me a brief synopsis of what the summer 25 compensatory, what that entailed?
So compensatory services are
Thank you.
when a student has an IEP and they are supposed to receive speech and language services as indicated in their IEP, but there was no speech and language pathologist to provide those services. Per IDEA, that student is due for makeup services. Basically, it is very clear in IDEA that compensatory services cannot be during the regular school year. So it has to be either after school, on the weekends, or in the summer. And so it usually happens in the summer during the day, because it is even more difficult to get service providers to stay after school or come on a Saturday.
Yeah, they're not like old school teachers. We did it all.
Just do what we gotta do.
One last question. 27 students were serviced. How many students do we normally service or should be receiving these services based on their
IEP.
individual educational programming? Yes, their IEP.
On average, there are 60 to 70 students on each speech and language pathologist caseload. So once the caseload exceeds 60, we have to find someone else to service them. So these 27 students could
Okay.
not be on the caseload
Got
of
it.
60, because then we would be out of compliance with the state.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's the last meeting. Recently, we voted on services to provide, what was it? Speech and language. Has that been, has that went into effect yet? Have you guys organized and identified the students that need that service since we did approve it, and have they started receiving those services?
I have people waiting to interview for those positions. I have not received a signed contract to start placing. So I'm waiting on the contract to receive the signed contract to return to the agency.
Thank you.
Mhm. Paraprofessional training. Special services staff meet and provide professional development as well as group and individual support during all district PD days. We recently provided paraprofessional special services training on February 4th at the district-wide PD, and that paraprofessional development was related to the Medicaid billing and personal care service logs. They received training from Oakland schools and from our special services office to talk about the importance of Medicaid billing and personal care or personal care service logs, and how to do the logs and where those logs should be maintained, just to make sure we're maintaining compliance, because we have had new paraprofessionals on a regular basis coming on board. And so we continue to make sure that they know what their responsibilities are with Medicaid billing, random moment time, study surveys, and then the personal care logs.
So, Doc, what I think I hear you saying, the laws have changed where paras are legally able to do Medicaid billing, because back in the day they could not. You need, so they are legally able to do and complete Medicaid billing, and we still be in compliance, because that has never been the case. I'm not saying they haven't changed, just not aware of it.
If they are providing personal care, like you may have a one-on-one para.
No.
That is-
My question is, Medicaid billing,
Mhm.
is a para legally authorized by the state of Michigan to provide Medicaid billing? That would be a yes or a no. And I'm not being a smart aleck. I just want a yes or no.
If they are the teacher
No.
of record.
So can you please continue? Yes.
So for paraprofessionals, if they are the teacher of record, they are required to do Medicaid billing. What I mean by Medicaid ancillary staff, maybe that's what I should have said instead of paraprofessionals. So you have ancillary staff like speech and language.
Just
Yes, so I apologize for
That's
not making the distinction between ancillary staff and paraprofessionals.
okay.
Ancillary staff are supposed to do the Medicaid billing. Personal care service logs, that is what paraprofessionals do, because they are the one-on-one para that works with the student that may need assistance with toileting or feeding themselves. So that's the distinction.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
The previous director mentioned some shortcomings as it relates to submitting Medicaid billing on time.
Yes.
And she also reported to us that she identified the shortcoming and assured the board that there was someone in place, that there was something implemented so that we wouldn't be negligent in the future. Have you experienced the consistency with Medicaid billing? So is there someone dedicated to ensure that the Medicaid is being billed on time and accurately?
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Well, it's in the slide.
I apologize. I
Okay.
jumped ahead. I'm sorry.
So in the slide, you'll see, to your point, that there are intentional communications and support provided by the special services staff, particularly Miss Dean. Then we have Miss Doff and Miss Jackson. and then Miss Adragna. So they all work together regularly, constant communication on reminders ahead of time. Don't forget, 5 o'clock on the 5th, and then follow-up emails to myself and the principals of, hey, we still don't have yours. It's almost 5 o'clock. So there's constant communication, and that they send reminders to the staff prior to the 5th of each month. And when they are late, there's still a grace period, but we don't like to go too far into the grace period. So that's where they start to get a lot of those communications as reminders.
I appreciate your diligence on that and you staying on top of that, because it was disappointing to hear that we were so far behind on the Medicaid billing. So I appreciate you keeping track of that and sending the reminders so that we are not missing out on funding due to negligence of billing. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All righty. So continuing on with our successes, I won't read the whole chart to you, but as you all know, alternate state assessments, particularly My Access, there is a cap on how many students should be taking alternate assessments, My Access, instead of taking MSTEP. And their MDE is currently working with the district on addressing the alternate assessment challenge. And you'll see on the bottom row, in comparison with the state and the county, you'll see historically throughout the years, we have had a high percentage of students taking alternate assessments. It should be no higher than 1%. So where that comes from is a high number of students being identified as cognitively impaired. And there's been an assumption that because a student is identified as having a cognitive impairment, that they should take My Access. And that's not necessarily the case. There are some students that have been identified as having a cognitive impairment that is matriculating very well in a gen ed curriculum and receiving gen ed instruction under the Common Core state standards, which they should be taking MSTEP instead of My Access. Now you do have your significant cognitive impaired students who may need to take functional independence or supported independence, My Access, but we are working to get that number down. It should not, even though you'll see the trend that the number has fluctuated and it has gone down from last year to this year, it still should not be at 4.9%. So what we are doing to be more intentional about making those decisions is looking more at the data. There's a guidance from MDE on, and it's a very clear flow chart on, should my student take My Access? And it guides us through what is the student matriculating in, what's the curriculum, what are their what's their present level of academic achievement and functional performance, what's the data saying, and it guides us through making the decision as to whether an alternate assessment is or is not appropriate for that student. So, but we do need to get away from the assumption that cognitive impairment means alternate assessment. They don't necessarily have to take My Access. All righty, so I wanted to share some numbers that are not on this slide, but I wrote them down. Of the total Pontiac student population, 734 students have an IEP. We have, so some of the challenges, although we have had some successes with Medicaid billing, there's still some challenges there with ensuring compliance. And what I mean by, just from what I've observed, the challenges are having to constantly remind people to do their Medicaid billing versus it just being part of their daily their daily mode of operation or weekly mode of operations. They need constant visual and verbal reminders. So the challenges are to ensure compliance, staffing, constantly changing to fill vacancies and ensure coverage and service. I wanted to elaborate on that. We know that we have a high turnaround with a lot of our staff that would be responsible for Medicaid billing. And then sometimes a staff member who knows that they should do Medicaid billing, when staff members are rotated or switched out, someone new may not know that that's what they have to do. So it's the ongoing training. What I've been speaking with the principals about, because I have done principal listening conferences and done building tours just to really understand the department and what the needs are. Talking more about having a transition period before the staff members who do Medicaid billing are automatically switched out to go somewhere. We're switching people. Let's have a transition period to talk to those people about when you move to this next position or location, here will be your responsibilities and some expectations as it relates to Medicaid billing. It has been noted that Medicaid billing is very time consuming and that we have not had the staff in the SPED office to address Medicaid billing needs. Now, I did mention that Ms. Dean has been very helpful with that, but Ms. Dean is not always in our office. She does assist the district in many other ways. It's to my understanding that a 0.5 Medicaid specialist was requested, but it was not approved. It was recommended that this position is needed in order to continue the compliance in large number of Medicaid reimbursement funds. So perhaps we can revisit that request in the future. So, timely evaluations to ensure compliance due to the extreme increase in the number of special education referrals. How are we addressing that? That is a challenge. So, timely evaluations. We have 30 school days when a parent writes a request or a staff member makes a request for a student to be evaluated. We have 30 school days to complete the evaluation and the IEP. Well, with the shortage of staff, sometimes those requests are not met within the 30 school days. The state does not acknowledge staffing as a reason for being out of compliance. So, throughout the district, due to behavior, academic concerns, and so many students are coming in and not being potty trained, physical limitations, wheelchairs, 3 years old, but crawling, nonverbal. There are a lot of factors that go into when you don't have enough school psychologists or service providers to do an evaluation, on top of inconsistent attendance, students who may be nonverbal. Some of the school psychs from these agencies only want to be virtual. So can you imagine trying to do an evaluation for a nonverbal student virtually? So we do have it on our list to discuss making sure we work to have some of these positions as direct hires. I know the agencies have been very helpful, but we need staff members that are vested, that can be here every day, really do the classroom observations, and really meet with the parents and the staff. Staffing has been a challenge, and it's an increase in the number of referrals requires an increase in staff required to conduct and complete the evaluations to meet the state time frame. A challenge has also been retaining staff due to the workload required to ensure compliance. We start the school year with all vacancies covered, certified, substitutes, or contract staff, but by November and December, and I can attest to that because I have spent maybe 3 days each week interviewing 2 to 3 candidates from agencies. Is very time consuming. And I spend that much time doing it because every day that we don't have them, we're out of compliance. So it's very time consuming. And by December, November, December, we're back to trying to fill these vacancies. It's a challenge for the contract agencies to immediately staff vacancies. We did 2 interviews today for speech and language pathologists, and before we could even email back and say, yes, we're interested, they took position somewhere else. So that just took up 2 hours of my day. And then because of the time sensitivity, we have to look at other contract agencies or vendors to staff. Compliance challenge also has been the least restrictive environment. We are currently being monitored by MDE and Oakland schools about students being in the least restrictive environment. There are a lot of our scholars who can thrive in a gen ed setting. They can be mainstreamed, and they spend a lot of time in the self-contained setting when we should be considering least restrictive by allowing them to be mainstreamed in gen ed reading or math, not just PE, art, or lunch, but really looking at their academic data, see where they can be mainstreamed. The challenge with that is there may be some behavioral challenges. So we may need paras to support them in the gen ed setting. So, but that's one of the reasons why we're being monitored for least restrictive environment.
Ms. Parkman, I
Yes,
have a question.
yes.
So of the 734 students with an IEP, can
Mhm.
you give me maybe a percentage of how many are maybe in K-5? Because just looking at the evaluations or looking at the problem here, and you're stating that even birth to 3-year-olds, the behavior, I'm just curious to know, even at that young age, that parents are requesting that we perform an IEP for a baby child,
Mhm.
a small child. I'm just wondering help me understand what that population looks like. 734 students, but
Mhm.
how many are K-5 maybe? How many are middle school and how many are high school?
So outside of counting the K-5 at, I'm going to say Kennedy Owen, just because they have a unique situation there. I would say approximately 20 to 25% are the early on elementary K-5 students, and that your elementary students, the large population, what I can tell you is speech and language, uh, autism, and ECDD, or early childhood developmental delay. A lot of when we talked about the birth to 3 or the early on, we have to also consider the homebound services that we offer to children who are under an independent family support plan. It's not an IEP, but because they live within our district, when the parent requests wraparound support or an evaluation, the school if we're their residential district, we have to provide support to them.
Even if they don't go to school here? So even if these families, let's say they were choosing another school, if they were living in Pontiac, but
Mhm.
let's say their child went to one of our other surrounding, maybe charter schools, that if they're requesting this service, they have to come here? Or these are only for students that are here attending Pontiac School District?
Only for Pontiac.
Okay.
So if a parent has done a school of choice situation, then that school, their operating district, would be responsible for all of their special education services, not residential district.
I have a question, Doc, regarding, I'm back to the billing. For
You're
the
back.
record,
Mhm.
paras do or do not provide services as it relates to the Medicaid billing. Are they required? Just a para. I heard you say something about teacher of record, because if they're not a teacher of record and they're a para, they should not be doing it. Would I be correct in that assessment?
What I clarified when you were
I had to, you know how to go.
right. Okay. What I clarified was the difference between ancillary staff and the paras. The paras would do personal care logs that fall under the Medicaid. The
Personal care
ancillary
logs,
staff
excuse me.
does the Medicaid
That's not a
billing
billing.
for speech and OT.
A personal care log is not the same as billing Medicaid. So for the record, do you have paras performing that duty? Are our paras doing Medicaid billing? Yes or no?
Not in the way in which you're explaining it.
It
No.
would be a yes or no. If you could
No.
answer, if there, so for the record, I will find no para doing a Medicaid billing.
No.
Okay. Also, you stated that there was someone dedicated to billing, and then you stated something about rotating. Can you facilitate my thinking with that piece?
There was a person who was handling the Medicaid billing who left. So a request was put in for someone else to replace that person. That person has not been replaced, but Dr. Devison has shared someone with us, Ms. Dean, to assist us with the Medicaid billing until we hire a full-time person. What I meant by rotating is that Ms. Dean isn't there every single day. We need someone there every day, like the person we had before.
I wasn't aware, not that I know everything, but I wasn't aware that Ms. Dean had the background endorsements of special education. And that person left back in February of 25. So we still, I think that part of, I'm not going on a tangent, but I am going to say this from my soapbox. Until we find someone in personnel to facilitate going out and finding people to fill these positions, we're going to be in a deficit position.
So
But
what I also mentioned is that we have Debbie Doff and Claretha Jackson who are experienced.
They're
They're the
secretaries, yes.
substitutes
Yeah.
for Miss Latarsha, who was the main person. They're experienced in it, but
Are they legally
yes,
able to perform and provide the service without us receiving a penalty for being out of compliance because we have people doing work that they're not qualified to do? But for the final thing, and I won't belittle this anymore, but I heard you say there are no paras doing Medicaid billing unless they have been identified as teacher of record. Am I correct with that assessment?
I clarified that answer, so I retracted.
So my
that.
question is, last time,
Mm-hmm.
a para, if I was to go and do my due diligence to look at the list of paras and the duties or jobs that they're performing,
Mm-hmm.
I will not find a para doing Medicaid billing at this point. And if I did run across a para providing that service to the district, they would be teacher of record. Is that a yes or a no?
Paras are not.
Thank you, baby. Thank you, Doc. Thank you.
Please, yeah.
Oh, and then the staffing. So we're working to address the increase in the number of referrals by collaborating with MTSS to ensure adherence to district-wide interventions. What I have done is I've assigned, it's either myself or the special education supervisor who attends the student support network meetings to make sure that there's a special education presence at the meetings to provide input on different interventions that can be used with students over a 4 to 6 week period prior to them being referred to special education for an evaluation. And then for staffing, we're continuing to work with HR on the staffing. And then B, the check with colleges and others for interns or et cetera, I have not done that. I will have to check with if that's been done before and what the procedure is for working with colleges for when their college fairs or teacher fairs would be. Retaining staff, supporting with a buddy service provider and leadership team. I myself am a buddy on the leadership team with Owen Kennedy. And then manageable caseloads, hiring more staff to try to spread these caseloads out. And then regular check-ins by administrators. We do have those. As I mentioned, we've done the listening conferences. I'm at principal meetings. And then professional growth and training, the district-wide PDs. But I'm regularly meeting, our department is regularly meeting with principals and giving support and guidance on special education concerns. And then also maintaining, which is extremely important, a positive culture. Making sure I send my emails, sending the shout outs when, things are going well, and making those rounds, visiting, letting them know that we appreciate them. And then compliance, the LRE, a 1% participation rate, and inclusion, professional development and training and support is happening with that. And then monitoring and Oakland School supports. Oakland Schools is at our building at least twice a week, providing support for any findings from previous monitorings. Let's see. This slide seems to be the same thing that I just read. Does anyone have any questions?
Any more questions, trustees? No, I don't have a question, Ms. Parkman, but I thank you. You've been quite busy since you've been here since November. You definitely have gotten acclimated to everything. We knew that this department has had its challenges. Again, just knowing that our caseload is as high as it is says a lot. But I appreciate the work that you've done to come up to speed with everything and trying to get a handle over everything so that we can stay in compliance and so that we can do what we need to do to move forward and try to rectify whatever challenges. So I appreciate the work that you've done thus far.
Thank you.
All right, trustees, anything else? Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. All right, trustees, next on the agenda is open floor. Here, I wanted to put, we did put an item on here for board discussion as it relates to board members attending negotiations. This did come up that some of the trustees had asked if we could have board members to attend negotiation meetings, whereas there is no law that says that board members cannot attend. It is discouraged that board members to attend, and some of the reasons that have been stated is because board members could have connections or relationships with any of the persons that are in the district. But because there is no law, we said that we would consider it. But one of the things that I wanted to suggest is because we're so far in the negotiation process at this point, that we not have a board member to attend the negotiation meetings. However, going forward, when we do I'm hoping once this is done and we'll have multiple year contracts, so it won't be anything readily. But in the future, when we have negotiations, that the board do determine who can go, who should attend board negotiations. Typically, it has been from conversations with other districts. If board members do attend, it's usually the president or the board votes to have what trustee attends the board negotiations, but in our case, it's because we are thus far into negotiations that I don't think that we should have board members. But again, that's something that the board can decide. If the board is deciding, and because there were a couple of people that said that they wanted to, then the board would need to vote on who would go and attend board negotiation meetings. So board, this is for discussion. So comments, thoughts, please feel free to share. Yes, trustee Miller.
During the course of my education through Michigan Association of School Boards, 2 weeks ago is when I learned that MASB did previously discourage board members from sitting at the negotiation table, but they very explicitly said that they have backed off of that, and they put the decision up to each board member. So they no longer support not going to the negotiations as a board member. In fact, I will be attending a conference on Friday for labor relations as it relates to how the board, as a board trustee, can facilitate that with our unions. I disagree with it being a precedent, or we have to vote on it. As colleagues, we should have, it shouldn't be dictated who can participate in something and who cannot. And I understand past practice has always been the precedence, but laws, expectations, everything is steadily changing. So we have to change with what's new and current. With that being said, I do not agree with it being one individual person or should be voted on, because as we all know, the votes typically go a certain way. We should all have the opportunity to attend, and just attend, not facilitate, not speak, as directed and encouraged through MASB. And in addition to that, there's no policy for the Pontiac School District that states that a board trustee cannot. So being that there's no policy and no law, why is it recommended that we need to vote, which will restrict those that would like to attend? Or why should it be the president, which again will restrict the rest of the members of this board to obtain information so we can stay updated and current as it relates to our negotiations, because we've been stonewalled for a while now.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Treasurer Terry?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Trustee Dooley, you say? Treasurer Terry.
Okay. From my perspective, I don't believe there's anything, and I'm in agreement with Trustee Miller. There's nothing in policy or anything that dictates who, I guess, from the board should sit on there. It's all been recommendations, and it is what it is. It is a recommendation. I also know that just in discussions and trainings as well, and dealing with, I guess you want to say, some of the legal ramifications that can happen, it's almost like, why would we want to put the board in that type of situation? We got to also keep in mind that it's not just an individual. This is a board of 7. So when anything does happen, it's looked at as a whole board, not as individual board members. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm open. I do not have a problem, given the fact that I know things have been going on for a period of time now, and that we are, how you want to say, things have heightened, I would say. There's been a level of, to a point of disrespect, and it's to the point where we only as a board get the final yay or nay. We don't really have the opportunity to negotiate, I would say. And if we did, that becomes a legal issue. I prefer to stay out of the legal issues. If we want to look at this further down the road, I have no problem with that. We're in hopes that this would end soon, and maybe things will ease up. People will back up. things will almost kind of go back to normal until we have that situation again where contracts are due again and negotiations start all over. So as far as my point, I don't mind, but also, you know, is I would say would like to have the right representation on there. But we all know what can happen if an individual goes rogue. So I yield.
Let Trustee Dooley go. She go. Okay, Trustee Miller.
Trustee Terry, I completely agree with you. It is my recommendation that we set some very stern parameters based upon the recommendations of the Michigan Association of School Boards on what and how the board member that's sitting in, again, I'm going to stress, sitting and negotiating, not negotiating on behalf of the district, sitting there. We need to set some parameters and expectations of whatever board member that chooses to attend, so that you're right, we don't violate any laws. We don't interfere with negotiations. But I do recommend that any trustee based upon MASB that would like to attend those negotiations and sit in those negotiations, I do recommend that we allow that. But before we allow that or consider that, as a board, there needs to be some parameters set in place to protect the integrity of this board in the school district.
I
Yes,
concur with that, making perimeters. Trustee Jennifer Dooley was the one that requested to be a part of that negotiation team to go and sit and hear and listen. It was only after receiving educational courses with the Michigan Association of School Board, MASB, that the information was brought forth that we are allowed. Prior to that, when I requested that or made mention, it was immediately said that was not allowable. So that's where, if anyone's wondering who they're talking about me. I asked to be on that committee. And then after me making it known that I wanted to be a part of that, Trustee Gross in his absence said he wanted to be a part of that. Moving forward, because it is open to anyone, we all can go if you want to. So I just wanted to be clear. And if you want to know why I thought I would be a good person, I thought this: if my presence alone I know that went over some of y'all head, but my understanding, having been on the other side of this table and now at this table, would have allowed me, when in discussion with my other 6 colleagues that make up the board, plus one, our 8, our superintendent, our 1 employee, that's where I was coming from. So I just wanted it out there because I'm transparent, and my constituents who speak to me and ask me to represent them thought it would be a good idea for me to be a part of that. So you hear me out there. I did bring it to this committee, and then all of a sudden it needs to be voted on. But that is not what MASB said. I yield the floor.
All right, any other comments? Treasurer Terry.
Yeah, I just want to add, there technically should not be a set boundary. There is basically a no limit. And when we say no limit, you're just basically going in there to be, as they say, a fly on the wall.
Right, present, my presence.
To be present
I stated that.
doesn't change anything. However, at the same point, you need to look at and evaluate what are we gaining from just sitting in there. As a board, what are we gaining? The information that's discussed in there is usually not discussed out in public, let alone should be shared amongst the rest of the 7 board members. It becomes as information, if it needs to be shared, then that is something we all need to be in a closed session and to have that discussion. But at that point, our negotiation team, attorneys are already present to provide us those updates. I don't really see the real benefit. And like I say, there doesn't have to be a vote. If we want to take a vote, that's fine. If we got more than one, we can take a vote. If we got two people that want to sit on there, I'm not going to be one of them because of the legal situation, and also it ties your hands up when it comes down to voting. So if it gets that serious and we need to do a vote, let's do a vote. If it doesn't, then let's not. But once again, at this point, because it's so far along, I really don't see the real benefit of sitting inside a meeting and gaining really nothing out of it other than listening.
So, trustee, with all due respect, trustee Terry, just because you don't see it doesn't mean there does not exist a need, or that it will be received and there could be a benefit to others.
I agree. My question is, who is the others?
Other members of the negotiation team.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
But they're already sitting in there.
I'm sorry. I think
Make
we
it
have
make
heard
sense.
we have heard the comments as it relates to this, and I think trustees have made some good points about putting together boundaries or what should and shouldn't take place should a trustee sit in there. So I think that will require further discussion. So we can do that at another meeting. I don't want what has been said tonight to be misinterpreted by trustee Dooley saying that her presence, because I don't want anybody to think that that could be used as a form of intimidation on either part. So I just want to clarify that was not the intent when she was mentioning. And I'm sorry, I'm not speaking for you, trustee Dooley, but I just want to
If
make
I could
sure
just
that
interject,
it's
my
clear.
presence, the anointing,
I just want to
the
make
spirit
sure
of the
that we're-
Lord.
I just want to make sure everybody is clear. That is not what we're trying to say, that why we would need a board member to sit in a meeting of negotiation. So
It's all right.
that's
It's all
been
right.
conversation.
MASB
We've
said it's all
already
right.
discussed it. So we'll move down to any other board comments and announcements. All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
Oh no, I thought you were going to call
Oh.
who starts.
I saw heads nodding. No, I'm sorry.
Oh no,
We'll
I
start
don't,
down here,
I don't know
trustee
sign
Dooley.
language. I use my words. It's always good to come together to shape the organizational direction of this district. As previously stated, I remain committed to this district: accountability, transparency, leading with integrity. If you've ever thought about being a part of a civic organization or being a part of a board, the time is now. Please come out, join in, see how governance is done, and go out, get on MASB website, get the information, go out to the courthouse, to elections, get the information. I want to make it clear, definitely to Dr. Parkman. I was going to say upload, but Dr. Parkman, never is my passion a direct attack or personal attack on anyone. Sometimes my passion comes out very aggressive. So I just want to go on record to let you know when I ask questions and if my voice change, it's not anything directed to you personally. It's the whole aura or arena of education. So just know that. I want to be on record so you won't leave here thinking anything other than what it is. I was just asking you questions. So with that, sometimes that impacts my decisions and how I go about. But at the core of things, academic achievement, accountability, leading to a measurable outcome. All roads lead to academic achievement. All roads lead to academic achievement. We're here for our students. And when it kind of goes awry, that I know certain things. I've been in education over 30 years. I've retired 30 years. With that being said, I have a different background to many of my colleagues, with the exception of Dr. Leverett. She has more experience, definitely having that doctorate, than me in education. She's been in the classroom just like me. We've been in a lot of things, and then she's held definitely offices that I have not. So I say that because I look at stuff through a different lens. And as educators, you guys know, we look through stuff differently than just the common folk. I wish everyone a good evening, and with that, a good night.
Trustee Miller.
I'll be very quick with my comments tonight. Thank you for everyone that is in attendance in person today and those that are watching online. Thank you to all the departments that presented this evening. I appreciate answering my questions so I can have a better understanding of where we are currently in the district. So thank you very much. The only other thing I want to say is we're a few days away from March. March is reading month. One of the best experience I've had last year as a new board member was being invited to Frost, that is now at WHR in this building. A teacher invited me to come to her classroom and read. And the way that those kids pulled my hair, pulled my badge, and was hanging on to me with all the hugs, that made me realize I was in the right place. So I encourage those that have the availability and the time to please utilize March as reading month and pick one of our schools or several of our schools and go read to our students. You will truly enjoy it. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Secretary Davis Smith, any comments? No? Okay.
No,
Treasurer Terry.
Thank you, everyone, for the presentations tonight. Good information. I know we had our troubles with the weather and everything, but thank you for coming out and presenting again all your information. Good to know. I'm looking forward to the next one as well. So hopefully we don't have no weather issues or anything like that. And then good discussions here with the board. Let's continue to work together and continue to move forward, and just never forget that no one's perfect. So don't expect this board to be perfect in any way whatsoever. You got a team of 7 plus 1, so a team of 8 total, all different personalities, all different backgrounds, all different experiences, and trying to come together and work as one. So if you ever worked on a team, you know how troubling that can be sometimes to try to get everybody on the same page. Sometimes it takes a little time for us to all get together and be in sync, but let's continue to keep pushing forward, team. So thank you for all that you guys do, and yeah, have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you again, Dr. Debison and team, for being here. We appreciate your patience, but it was worth the wait. The information that you provided was very helpful. So thank you. That is all that I have. So if I can get a motion for adjournment, please.
So move.
It's been moved by Trustee Dooley, supported by Treasurer Terry to adjourn the meeting. Any questions? Roll call.
President Hannah,
Yes.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Treasurer Terry.
Yes.
I'm voting yes, and Trustee Dooley.
Yes.
That passes 5.
Thank you. The time is 7:14 p.m. and the meeting is adjourned. Have a good night, everybody.